if you are experiencing discomfort and pain or any of the symptoms above frequently, and it's impacting your day-to-day life, it's impacting your ability to go to work, or it's impacting your mood or your self-confidence, then that is a time to start looking at the issues and addressing them. And I think it's really important for women to understand that while it's really common to have PMS, it's actually not normal. It's not something that we just brush under the carpet.
Welcome to the Viable Wellness Lab, where we welcome experts to discuss the science of health and well-being. My name is Larah. I am the co-founder and CEO of Viable. Thanks for tuning in. The information we share is for educational purposes only. Always consult with your health professional before making any changes to your health routine. Today I'm joined by Stephanie Hinton, a clinical naturopath.
Hi, Larah.
Hi, Steph. Really thrilled to have you today.
Thanks for having me.
And so we're here to discuss premenstrual symptoms, aka PMS, and hormones. So, Steph, PMS is a topic of concern for many Australian women, with more than 75% of them reporting that they experience premenstrual symptoms, and 20 to 40% of them reporting debilitating symptoms. Perhaps we can start with what led you to study naturopathy, because I think it's linked to the topic.
Yes, definitely. My story, I think, is very similar to a lot of clinicians and naturopaths in that I was led to naturopathy from my own personal experience with hormonal health and issues there. So I was in my early 20s and I was loving my corporate life, but I was burning the candle at both ends and really just living life, working long hours, guzzling coffee, probably not eating too well, enjoying my social life on the weekends. And I started to get a lot of premenstrual issues, so really painful periods and really debilitating pain, acne, brain fog. It really started to impact me. And the catalyst where I finally sought help was I was getting IBS symptoms as well around my period. And I just started to feel unwell. And it wasn't until a friend of mine actually suggested to go and see a naturopath, and I'd never done that before. So I went, I booked an appointment and walked into the clinic and immediately was just at peace. My naturopath, I remember she poured me a cup of herbal tea, which was groundbreaking for someone who just smashed coffees. And we went through my symptoms in a lot of detail. And even in that first session, I started to understand where a lot of my lifestyle choices were having these knock-on effects. And she just pieced it together for me. And it was so incredible to finally understand that I could actually fix the problems and that they were just signs and messages from my body. And so cut to a couple of years later, I was so inspired. I went and studied and then ended up going into clinical practice as a naturopath, helping other women who had menstrual issues.
So interesting.
Yeah.
And so maybe we start with that. What are premenstrual symptoms, so PMS, and what are different symptoms that people can experience?
Yeah, so PMS is premenstrual syndrome. That's what it stands for. And essentially it's a collection of physical and emotional symptoms that women experience both leading up to their period and during menstruation. And what's really interesting is there's actually 5 different types of PMS, and people don't realize that. And I think what is so beneficial there is that you can use those different types to help pinpoint what you're experiencing. And for some people, you might just have one type. For others, you might have all types. But at least once you understand, you can start to address them. So I'll take you through the types quickly. So the first one is PMSA, which is anxiety. And a lot of women experience PMSA, throughout their period. They might have moments of anxiety, and it could be unexplained, and that's typically related to their cortisol, their HPA axis, and hormonal imbalance. We then have PMSC, which is cravings, which a lot of women can experience, and you kind of just expect that that's normal, but generally PMSC is a result of nutritional deficiencies. Potentially you're not getting enough magnesium in your diet, so you're craving that sugar and chocolate. It's also related to blood sugar imbalances, so really looking at stress and sleep and how you're really managing your energy levels so that you're not going for those high sugar, high calorie treats in the afternoon to keep you going. We then have PMSH, which is hyperhydration. So that is for women who experience severe bloating and water retention and swollen breasts. And, they might get to leading up to their period and think, I just feel like I've gained 5 kilos of water weight. And that's a real indication that you may have estrogen excess. So it's not something to be scared of, but it's really interesting that your body can start telling you, hey, things are imbalanced, and you can start looking at what that might, what is causing that estrogen excess. The next one is PMSD or PMDD, which is one I've seen a lot in clinic. It's PMS depression or premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Now, that's not to say that if you have depressed symptoms that it's related to your hormones. Always speak to your GP, your doctor, and get support there. But if you notice that throughout your cycle you have these huge drops all of a sudden in mood from, feeling great to suddenly feeling really low and it's unexplained, and then maybe 24 hours later you think, oh, I'm okay again, and you notice that it's cyclical and it keeps happening, then you might want to start looking at whether there's a hormonal fluctuation that is causing this. So that's PMDD. And typically that's caused by histamine intolerances and serotonin transmitters. So there's a lot there. Always good to speak with a clinician if that's kind of what's presenting for you. And then the final one, which was really what came up for me, it was PMSP, which is pain. And that's that debilitating, painful period, cramping either right before your period, during, or throughout the whole month. And that's one where it's really caused by inflammation and hormonal imbalance. So you really want to be looking at what's happening in your diet and lifestyle that could be causing that inflammation. So for me, it was stress. I was living in a moldy house. I was looking at potentially endometriosis. So there was a lot of inflammation. And the things I had to do to support that was really looking at my plastic intake around phthalates in my skincare and my perfumes, and whether they were impacting my endocrine system, as well as food intolerances that were inflaming my body. So yeah, there's a lot there, but
fascinating.
There's just so much you can do once you have that knowledge and education around what type you might have.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I had no idea that there were, those different types of PMS.
Mm-hmm.
But so the last one that you mentioned was around pain.
Yeah.
And I feel that, when I talk to my friends or, even myself, I experience period pain on a regular basis. So when do we know if this pain is actually normal or outside of normal range? And when do we actually need to seek help?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I really believe that if you are experiencing discomfort and pain or any of the symptoms above frequently, and it's impacting your day-to-day life, it's impacting your ability to go to work, or it's impacting your mood or your self-confidence, then that is a time to start looking at the issues and addressing them. And I think it's really important for women to understand that while it's really common to have PMS, it's actually not normal. It's not something that we just brush under the carpet. I always say this, your body is really giving you messages, and your period is really a scorecard of the previous few months. So if you're noticing these habits or these patterns, coming up over and over again over the most recent few months, then that's a time to really address it and start seeking support and start making changes, because your body is giving you some messages.
So you just said that your symptoms are a scorecard for the last 3 months of your lifestyle and diet. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Why 3 months?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to ovulation, which is essentially what's happening when you have a period, your eggs mature over a 3-month or 90-day period. So really, when you're looking at even things like falling pregnant or just having a healthy cycle, you really want to be looking at those last 90 days that you've had as an opportunity to improve your period and your menstrual cycle. So that's why we say that if you are looking at your current period, it's a good reflection on how you've been treating your body for the last 3 months, because your period will reflect those changes.
So interesting. And is it the reason why when someone, let's say, comes off their pill or actually try a new contraceptive pill, they're being told that it takes a minimum of 3 months for them to see the changes?
Yeah, definitely, because essentially, when you're coming off the pill, you need to allow your body time to clear out those synthetic hormones and allow your natural hormonal cycle to take over. So there's a whole bunch around digestion and detoxification pathways that needs to occur, and your body needs time to regulate, especially if you've been on the pill for 5 or 10 years. You absolutely need to give yourself the grace period of a few months to allow those changes to come up.
Makes sense. Actually, I've always heard that we should adapt the way we exercise based on where we are at in our menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
Is that true? And what should we do? Like, what habits should we adopt?
Yeah, definitely. I think it is true. I've seen it work really well in clinic for clients. It's a really beautiful way to tune into your natural cycle and your natural body. And I think it's important to understand for women that unlike men who have a stable level of testosterone pretty much throughout their lives, they may have some peaks and troughs. Women have fluctuations consistently throughout their month alone. So you really need to be, honor yourself and allow yourself to have those fluctuations. And it's important to understand how they are happening in the body. So when it comes to exercising for your cycle, we call that cycle syncing. And it's essentially syncing your lifestyle and even your diet to the different seasons or the different phases of your cycle. A typical healthy cycle is 28 to 35 days, which typically spans over about 4 weeks, give or take. And within that, there's 4 very distinct phases. And the best way I find to approach these is to think of phases like the seasons. So summer, autumn, winter, spring. So as an example, in spring, that's right after your menstrual cycle concludes. You've just had your period. And if you think about springtime, which we're in right now, spring is like an opportunity to take the covers off, get out of the house, find your energy, feel revitalized, start increasing your exercise routine, maybe doing more running or HIIT or high intensity. And the reason for this is at this point, your estrogen is rising. So estrogen is such a beautiful hormone to increase your energy levels. And it's really great because it's the end of that cycle where you've been bleeding and you're coming out into a new opportunity, a new dawn, if you will. The next part is summer. So if you think about what summer is in our current lifestyle, summer is typically a really exciting, energetic opportunity. It's where you can do HIIT and high intensity because your estrogen is peaking. And the thing with estrogen is that it's also the hormone that helps you attract the opposite sex. It's the hormone that gives you confidence and energy. It's the hormone that helps you with libido. So if you think about summer, that's a really nice opportunity to go for it. Hit PBs when you're training, lift heavy weights, because that's where you can really harness the estrogen. And then we head into autumn. So this is right after you ovulate, and typically you will notice if you're in tune with your cycle that when you ovulate, you see a sudden kind of change in your energy levels. So you might go from feeling really amazing at the gym to suddenly not really hitting those PBs, or you're a bit sleepy, it's a little harder to get out of bed. And that's typically because progesterone is rising and estrogen is dropping. And progesterone rises because either you've conceived, so you've ovulated and you've conceived, so progesterone will support that conception, or your body is preparing to have another menstrual cycle. So there's a bit of a fluctuation there in autumn. You can still exercise, you can still move your body. In fact, I recommend it because it's really good for helping your body detoxify that estrogen. However, don't push yourself and expect the same results. Go easy on yourself. And then the final cycle or the final season is, of course, winter. And it's exactly how it sounds. Go inward, rest your body for a couple of days. I have to say this to my clients because often they keep pushing and expecting the same results. So winter is really that chance to hibernate, rest your body, things like yin yoga, walking with a friend, stretching. Just give yourself the time to rest while you're having a bleed. And of course, I think it's important to remember that during that time, we lose a lot of iron through blood and we lose nutrients. So you can't expect the same level of energy and output as you would in your summer or your spring phases. And just as a final kind of wrap up of that, I think when we're talking about exercise and getting results, men can look at their results week on week. Women should really look at them month on month because compare your spring with next month's spring. Don't compare your spring with this month's winter, if that makes sense.
I love this. It's so interesting. And so I think it's a good reminder that for some women who menstruate, I think important to say that, because some women don't menstruate, and maybe we can touch on this later.
Yeah.
But for women who menstruate, you are not crazy if you feel that there are some parts of the month where you just can't run, or you feeling, that you have you're a little bit, you have your legs are a little bit swollen, and that you're not getting the result that you want. And I think it's a good reminder to be kind to yourself. And it's okay. It's natural.
Yep.
And I love this monthly comparison rather than the weekly comparison.
Definitely. And I've shared this with so many women, and it really does transform their understanding of their bodies, which I just think is such a gift to give someone, to say, go easy on yourself. You can't expect the same all the time.
Yeah, definitely. And so perhaps, a good time to touch on women who are not menstruating. So women who are in age of menstruating but who are not menstruating. Is this also a sign perhaps that is it your body telling you something as well here?
Yes. So there are situations where women aren't menstruating, and generally there's a few different reasons this might be occurring. So one of them, which is quite common I've seen in women in their 20s and 30s, is amenorrhea. And this is where typically women might be over-exercising and under-eating, which we do see, unfortunately, and that can cause your periods to cease. And that's a real sign your body's saying, hey, I need nourishment. And the reason your body does this is because typically your body, your reproductive organs are there to help you essentially reproduce. That's what the period or the cycle does. And it's not going to allow you to do that if it feels like it's in a state of danger or risk. So if it feels like it's not getting the nourishment it needs, then your body will cease its cycle. And I think that that's a really big eye-opener for women when you let them know, hey, I mean, only in certain situations, but if they're under-eating and over-exercising, their body's saying, I'm not good and we're not in a safe space. So if you're in that situation, definitely seek clinical help, because there's so much support to help you adjust your habits and get into a better mindset around exercise. The other reason that someone might not have a period is thyroid issues. So if you've got hypothyroid, which is where you have an overactive thyroid or an underactive thyroid, that can really impact your menstrual cycle. So it's definitely one to get tested. You can go to your doctor and talk about that and start to look at what could be happening. But those are generally the two common causes for women who generally would have a period not having a period.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And me personally, when I was a teenager and I got my first period, I was told that a good way to reduce PMS was to take the contraceptive pill.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the experience of many people. So why is that, and how does the pill works?
That's a really good question. So what's important to understand about with the pill is it is a form of contraception. However, it doesn't reduce or fix your symptoms. And I think a lot of women may be a little bit misinformed or don't realize when they're taking the pill that what it's actually doing is suppressing your natural hormones. It's not balancing them, it's completely suppressing them and replacing them with a synthetic option. And where this could be difficult is that we actually need ovulation to occur for health in general. We need those hormonal changes. Women need estrogen. And when you take the pill, you're not getting that. And that's really important for a woman's general health all the way up until menopause, because you need that for healthy bones and longevity. It's not to say that the pill is evil. It's just really important to be informed about it. Do your research. Definitely speak to your GP, but also speak to your friends, speak to people who've experienced the pill, and be mindful that if you are going on the pill, that you need to make sure that you're supplementing, because the pill will deplete really critical nutrients in your body.
Like B vitamins?
Like B vitamins, exactly. And be mindful that if you come off the pill, it's going to impact your ability or how quickly you can fall pregnant or you can regulate your cycle. And when you do come off the pill, you will likely have to address some of those symptoms that were there in the first place. So my advice is always, let's try and address them now and fix them. And if not, then we can look at the pill as an option. Of course, the pill is a great option for contraception, and there are also other safe options as well. So it's really up to you to make an informed decision, and there's no judgment on taking the pill.
Definitely. And so, the main piece here, I think, is that the pill will perhaps help alleviate some symptoms, but it's not going to address necessarily the root cause.
Exactly.
For most people.
Yeah.
And so obviously up to everyone to, how they want to manage it. But I think the main piece of information is that if you decide that you want to come off the pill, and that's your choice, for whatever reason, you may want to go all natural.
Yeah.
Or you may want to fall pregnant.
Yeah.
And just you need to keep in mind, and I think that's what you said earlier, that it may take a few months to for your hormones to go back to kind of the normal cycle.
Yeah.
Period in which you should still use a contraceptive medium.
Yes.
But again, consult with your doctor.
Yes.
or your health practitioner just to have the right advice.
Definitely.
All very interesting. Thank you, Steph. And perhaps, as to conclude, for women who are trying to conceive and fall pregnant and want to focus on hormonal health, do you have any piece of advice?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you are trying to conceive and you want to focus on your hormonal health and say you're not on the pill already, I always recommend women spend 3 to 6 months doing some preconception care. So what that looks like is start taking your prenatal, make sure that you're taking a balanced prenatal, start focusing on your diet and getting all of the nutrients, specifically if you don't have a healthy diet at the moment or you're not nourishing your body, because if you do fall pregnant, in those first 3 months, it can be tricky to get those nutrients in, and what you have in your body already is going to really support that. So focus on your diet and your exercise as well, get fit and strong, and really start thinking about removing toxins from your body, because that's going to really support not only a healthy baby and a healthy egg that's going to turn into a baby, but it's also going to ensure that you have a really healthy pregnancy. And what that means is cutting back on chemical-based products in your makeup and your skincare and your shower care, thinking about what you're cooking with. All these things are going to help you have a really beautiful and healthy pregnancy. But just as we touched on earlier, be mindful that it could take you time, and that's okay. Your body will give you a healthy baby when it is ready. It just you need to really nourish those eggs that are in your ovaries and make sure you're taking the right supplementation to get the final result.
Yeah, makes sense. And for women who are experiencing PMS, are not wanting to conceive in the near future, what are natural ways to reduce PMS or manage, I guess, some PMS symptoms?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So first, definitely identify the root cause. As we talked about earlier, once you understand what kind of PMS you might have, it's going to make you find the solution faster than just trying everything. So really listen back to what we were saying, or do your own research and figure out what's happening for you. And then the next thing would be to focus on your digestion, because a lot of women who have premenstrual issues aren't having a regular daily bowel movement. And that looks like a healthy poop in the morning if you can, maybe one in the afternoon as well. And the reason for this is a daily bowel movement or a daily elimination allows you to clear out hormones quite regularly, and that's going to help balance your hormones naturally. So without that daily bowel movement, those hormones can recycle in the body, and that's where we start getting all these crazy changes and fluctuations that we can't figure out. So that's a really easy one. That looks like having more fiber in your diet, trying some chia seeds in your water in the morning, maybe taking a probiotic, lots of simple interventions that can help you have that regular bowel movement. The next thing would be to reduce inflammation. So if you're experiencing pain or bloating and swelling, think about, as we said earlier, intolerances in your diet, things like wheat and gluten and dairy impacting you. Are you eating a lot of sugar? Because that's going to inflame your body. Are there intolerances in your environment like mold or plastics that you're not aware of that you can start to identify and cut down on. And then the final thing I would say that will really help is supplementation. So supplementation is different for everyone, but really looking at supplements that are going to support general hormonal health, things like magnesium and B vitamins and zinc are fairly safe and effective for all women. And then, of course, if you have very specific issues around inflammation, you might want to look at supplementation there as well. But just small, simple steps can help you feel so much better.
Amazing. And perhaps just talking about technology, there are really, really cool apps out there. And without naming any, but it's easily, you can easily find them on Google. But essentially some apps that for free help you to track your cycle. So if you're unsure on where you're at in your cycle, after 1 or 2 cycles, actually where you log your period time where you have your period, etc., you're able to track your cycle, and that helps you identify where you're at and how to exercise according to...
Such a good tip, actually. Really starting to tune into your cycle and noticing symptoms that crop up frequently will really help you get to the bottom of your PMS. That's a great tip.
Thank you, Steph. That was an amazing session. Really enjoyed having you.
Thank you for having me.